Welcome to Grounding Ascension, where we explore the process of activating and integrating our I Am presence. I am your host, Celeste Gluz. Aloha, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of Grounding Ascension. This is the start of the next 3-part series all about fertility. And today we're going to be talking about understanding the new role of fertility and deepening our connection to fertility. And honestly, what came through is that this is a call to awaken the souls, ready to birth the transformation of humanity. I have been reading a lot of Llewellyn's books lately, and he says it so eloquently. He's a Sufi mystic teacher, so divinely inspiring. And he talks about the human templates being rewritten and transformed at this time, most specifically becoming in service to the changing needs of our times. They are adapting to humanity's transformation. So as we do the work, human templates, a lot of what you may run into, depending on who's speaking, will use different language and different verbiage, right? This is why we can't get really caught up on the words and the language that people use. And we have to start connecting to what the message is that is being shared. And what I have been seeing in my line of work and with other different teachers as well is that whatever you want to call it, the substance that holds this reality together is changing, right? And you can see it in the external. So when the substance of this reality changes on the inner plane, there is massive transformation on the outer plane, and vice versa. They work simultaneously. There is no first and last, right? It's no like left and right, first and second. It's simply all happening at the same time. So this is exactly what's happening right now. The literal substance that holds, the codes that hold, the human templates that hold the substance of life that we live, this matrix in one piece, they're changing, they're shifting, they're evolutionizing, right? They're evolving. And so I'm not even sure if evolutionizing is a word. I might have just made that up. I made up a lot of words. So bear with me. I'm a Latina girl who just makes up words on the go. Okay. So as long as you understand my point, we got this going. All right. So anyway, fertility. You might be thinking, okay, Cele, but what does fertility have to do with grounding ascension, right? And I mentioned a little bit about this in the last episode. Well, I'm so happy that you may be thinking about that, right? Because most people don't think about fertility unless they are thinking of conceiving a child, right? A woman doesn't really ever sit down or look into fertility unless she's trying to conceive a child, right? And neither does a man. Why would he, right? And unfortunately, this is a really closed off, in a box, flesh kind of reduced matrix mentality, right? It's like fertility, yeah, you just need that for a few years while you're trying to make babies. And that's just about it, right? And that's a really bad, that's just really bad. It's like, that's like, saying that this earth is, just clouds and soil and humans, right? It's like, what? If you explain that to somebody outside of Earth, yeah, it's just a place with clouds and a sun and there's soil on the land and then there's just humans walking around. It's like, well, that sounds kind of boring, right? There's not much going on Earth, right? That's our awareness of fertility. It's very one-dimensional. It doesn't really have a role in our lives except for when we want to reproduce, right? And of course, that would make sense for us to inherit such a mentality, right? Because it keeps you in this matrix. It takes away all of the magic of life. It strips away all of the beauty of, the spiritual substance of this experience that we have as humans. And it just gives us this matrix approach to you're a human being, your function is to work a 9 to 5, have a child at some point, and then just live your life, right? And obviously, there's a massive amount of our population, our younger generations, that are not doing that anymore. And even our older generations that are courageous enough to get out of those boxes. So things are changing. Our connection to life is changing. And with that, fertility is being rebirthed. She's being transformed. And it's so exciting to be able to live this. My question to you is, what does fertility mean to you? Have you ever even thought about fertility outside of the body's ability to create a child? The way that I am seeing fertility, the way that it's showing up for me, that it's being rebirthed and transformed, is that it can be looked at as the soil of life, right? So how fertile, man or woman, is your soil? And what I mean by that is, what kind of life are you creating? What is the substance of the soil of your life look like? Are you actually able to co-create and live out the seeds of your desires? These are really important questions for you to sit with. So if you want to put this on pause and rewind, but to actually be honest enough with yourself and answer these questions, you will start to open up to deeper levels of awareness of what fertility can start to look like for you. The topic of fertility it's pretty deep, and it's been spoken about so deeply in ancient texts because it's our ability to create the world that we live in. Whether you're creating a human being or you're creating from the deepest places of your desires. So we need to start to understand that fertility is so much more than just a short period of our lifetime where we're trying to procreate. And this conversation, this topic of interest to me has come to the forefront of my life because I am a woman at the age that supposedly we are supposed to have children. And I am one of those women that don't really feel like it, to be honest. It doesn't feel like it's something that I want to pursue, not at this time. You know, it's not something that's opening up for me. And the deeper I go on this path, the more I am driven to be of service in a very different way. And I actually love, and I am so passionate about working with women who do have children. And I so honor their path because sometimes I look at them and I'm like, I couldn't do that, you know? And sometimes they look at me and they're like, I couldn't do that. And that makes me realize that we're using our fertility in different ways. And it's so perfect. It's so profound to be able to see that, right? Anyway, that's me going on to a different topic. But yeah, it's being able to see fertility as so much more than this small part of our lives. And I also get to speak with women who have children and who now have decided to no longer have children, right? Because they've hit their max or whatever it is. And now they've just thrown fertility out the window. And it's like, wait a second, who said that fertility is only about procreation, right? And who said that men cannot be a part of this conversation? So the topic of fertility, just like Llewellyn would say that the human templates are being rewritten at this time, it's really being transformed before our eyes. And it's such an amazing opportunity to be able to live it and see it. So fertility is being shown to me as how we move in this world, how we create. Like I was saying earlier, the soil of your life, the foundational primitive substance of your life, the way that our actions and creations impact and actually last through time in this reality have a huge role in regards to fertility. So again, most of us haven't made a link between fertility and the ability to live and create something that can stand the test of time. But I invite you to start to step into this newfound understanding of fertility. So outside of birthing a child with this magnetic fertile substance that we all have throughout our entire lives, not just a short period of our time here on earth, right? What are we actually doing with fertility, right? If we're not procreating, whether you've already procreated or not, what are you doing with the rest of your life in regards to fertility? That's the big question that I want to get down to the bottom of, because I think that this is a huge untapped territory in conversations and in wisdom teachings. So to throw out fertility post procreation, or to throw out fertility because you're not interested in having children, I think is a desecration of being a human being. I think it's a complete blinded approach to living life. So this is what we're going to be talking about. And also keeping in mind that the lack of connection to fertility, whether we are trying to procreate or not, right? The fact that women have so easily given over their fertility to pharmaceutical companies, to period tracking apps, to so many things that are just completely stripping us of our human nature of connection to our own fertility, this is creating an even bigger wall, even bigger setback to our ability to connect to the divine feminine, to connect to the wisdom of the fertility that lies within us, right? So how can we possibly ever bring in men to this conversation if we as women have not grounded ourselves in our own fertility, right? So on an energetic level, whether man or woman or anything in between, right? It's the inability of each one of us to not take responsibility. In this case, the inability of taking responsibility for our fertility. We quite literally can't because we don't know how. We have not been given the tools, the information, the education to take fertility into our hands. And this has caused a huge blockage in our ability to tap into this newfound wisdom, right? There's ancient wisdom of fertility, and now there is the transformation and the rebirthing of wisdom behind fertility. So what I am being taught is that the soil I am churning, right? The soil within my own life and my body that I am nourishing with each cycle, right? With each moon cycle that passes within my body and within earth. This is me grounding into and soaking in and nourishing the wisdom of fertility within my life, right? When I think of fertility now, I see the spark of life. I see it like an electrical golden thread of life waiting to be alchemized into existence. And that thing that will alchemize it, that ignition that creates the alchemized action, is sparked by my pleasures and my desires, right? And we have to have a real conversation about what pleasures and desires actually look like, right? We need to be very clear about what pure and true pleasures and desires are. But when we get clear and pure about our pleasures and desires, we can start to see that fertility is the soil of life. It is this electrical golden thread of life that is literally inside of us, waiting to be alchemized, and it is waiting to be physicalized. I hope I'm making myself clear into this reality. So our ability to magnetize and create, it's like all of a sudden the magnetism and the creation become one. Right? In this process, and I can think of right now, specifically the Ascended Rose path, which is the path of merging the divine feminine and the ascension process, the activation of the light body. There's so many different words you can use, but ultimately understanding that it's all one. So at some point you're magnetizing and you're creating, right? You're sparking and you're also infusing. So this is fertility, my friends. This is the new definition of fertility. But how can we even fathom talking about something like this if in our modern world we have things like birth control that are so rampant, not only because women are choosing to take birth control through pharmaceutical companies. But birth control, it's been proven to be, the chemicals of birth control are proven to be in our water systems, right? Because the women that are taking this are now peeing, right? Obviously, natural function of the body, and it's now going into our water systems, which also have all these other all these other chemicals that are no good for our bodies and our brains and our human systems, right? We have all these hormone disruptors, not only in our water systems, but in the air and the things that we eat. We have so many things, radiation and stress and other forces that take such a strong role in our health, in our well-being. So this takes a major toll on our connection to fertility, right? It has to shift, and it has to create a huge wall between where we are as a humanity and our ability to tap into the true wisdom of fertility, right? It actually strips us away from the beautiful connection and opportunity we are given to the soil of creation that lies within us, aka fertility, right? I see life through the eyes of energy and cosmic consciousness. And that's one of the reasons why I created this podcast, because my intention is to merge everything together and make it as practical as possible, right? So even though I see through the eyes of energy and cosmic consciousness, I want to get this message so clean and so basic and fundamentally understood that fertility is the soil of our life, right? And sometimes when I see life through energy and cosmic consciousness, it's a little bit hard to ground these understandings onto paper, into words, right? So I sit with these things for a while before I get to actually speak on them. And it's a marvelous thing to witness. And it's also like this evolution of fertility before my eyes, right? How the soil of our earth, for example, has been so desecrated, how it's been stripped of its own nutrients, right? The minerals of our soil have been so stripped that our foods no longer have the minerals that we need. And you know this if you've taken any of my courses. This is why I'm so heavy on supplements, right? And so if the soil of our very earth is lacking the minerals that we need, how could fertility, which is the soil of our life, of our bodies, of our creations, even be a thing? Right? Because the physical is simply a reflection of the energetic and vice versa, right? So if the soil in our earth is lacking fundamental nutrients, then our ability to see fertility for what it actually is lacking fundamental attributes of wisdom and knowledge, right? I don't think that's a coincidence at all. And the deeper you go on this path, you realize these connections more and more and more, and they will blow your mind. So I'll leave that little synchronistic coincidence that came to me for you to sit on. And I go into the next part of this podcast, which is what is the true meaning and the role of fertility, right? And I explained it a little bit already, but basically fertility creates the world that we live in, right? The belief that fertility is limited to one experience is inverted. And we already spoke about that. It's very limiting. And it's time to really expand our awareness around fertility. And we can actually create a relationship with fertility throughout our entire lives. And this is what it means to become a creatrix, right? A creatrix of your own reality is to step out of the program that you have been given, that you have stepped into when you were birthed into this planet, and to take command of the reality that you live in. So a creatrix must have a fundamental understanding of what at least some notion of true fertility is. And so understanding our health around fertility, or how much you understand around your fertility, is a direct reflection of whether you are moving in the rhythm of life towards a higher understanding of fertility. Or maybe you don't have any approach towards your fertility. Maybe this is a brand new conversation to you, like it would have been to me a while back. And so that would have, knowing what I know now, it would have showed me that I am completely pushing against the very thing that's allowing me or asking me to grow and create my life into, right? This is why I, on a personal level, experienced so much resistance and struggle in the beginning of my path, because I was so resistant to it. And as a reflection of that, I actually didn't have any kind of connection to my fertility. So man or woman, any age that you are, I ask you to get curious and to ask the people around you, what is your connection to fertility? And I know that's like a crazy random question. I would love to hear your experiences with that, right? But, next time you're sitting with other people that you trust, bring up this topic and see, what do they think? What do they feel? Do they even have an opinion or an approach to what fertility plays in their life? And I also believe that most women that suffer from pain and inconsistent periods are actually pushing something against them that are so deeply buried within them. There is some kind of wisdom or information or knowledge or history that's trying to come to you, and you're looking away. And this is not okay. This is you looking away from the divine feminine. This is you shaming the role of fertility in your life, right? So it's when you actually start to regulate and have this whole thing in your hands, when you start to understand the role of fertility, when you start to take fertility into your own hands, that you get to see how every choice, every lifestyle habit, every thought, every action, even down to every word that comes out of you, it can throw you closer to your path or off your path. You see, what I have found is that fertility is also a sign of our alignment to the flow of divine service. Or you can also see it as a sign of our alignment to our soul's path. So, for example, if you as a woman, because women have the fertility cycle before menopause, if your fertility cycles are off, or if you have little to no connection with your womb or your fertility, I ask you the following. How much are you actually surrendering in your service? How much are you actually showing up to your deeper life's purpose, right? And that doesn't mean that you have a living or you make a living out of your life's purpose. It could mean that your life's purpose is to be in service by doing that thing that you love an hour a week, right? But are you actually surrendering to that thing? Are you giving yourself fully to that thing? Or is it in the background of your life? This can be a really big question for you to help you understand what is your relationship with fertility. Are you even open to expanding your understanding of it outside of the matrix definition of procreation? And so the questions to follow up that is, are you actually showing up to that service? Are you surrendering fully to that action that you're being called to do? Are you allowing your intuition to guide that service? Or is it the ego that's in the driver's seat? And that's something that I've had to learn since I've arrived to Hawaii. It was so clear that I am not, I don't even have a car, meaning I don't even get to be in the driver's seat because there's not even a car for me to sit in a driver's seat. Does that make sense? In that analogy, I don't get to have a say as to what my work looks like at all. And every single time I try to put myself in the driver's seat, I get slapped in the face. It is so humbling to understand that the role of fertility is basically the foundation of your life. This substance of soil can be so nourishing to you if you actually open yourself up to it. I hope this is making sense. So, the connection between fertility, our ability to surrender, and aligning to our soul's higher path, or realizing, quote unquote, the life of our dreams, is all connected, right? And this is not about manifestation at all. I will be talking about manifestation and how that's been distorted, unfortunately, as well in our reality. But really understanding, if we want to talk about manifestation, then we have to talk about fertility in that case. We have to talk about what fertility, how it plays a role in our life. It is completely undeniable and profoundly impactful to see how fertility can play a role in your life. The depth, the wisdom, the gift, the power, the magic of fertility, it's all been lost. It's all been vanished from the face of the earth. But guess what, my friends? That's why we're here having this conversation, right? We get to relive it. We get to rebirth it. We get to transform it. We get to be open. And by the way, do not let my words define what you look at fertility to be, right? This is me sharing my experience with you about fertility, how it's opening up and how it's revealing itself to me, and how I'm redefining and transforming what fertility looks like, and how expansive the definition of fertility is becoming in my life, and how it's becoming this transformative soil of the background and the essence of what holds my life together. And that's only because I decided to take fertility into my own hands and say, I am no longer leaving this in the shadows of my life. I am no longer just hoping that my approach to natural birth control just takes itself on its own 2 feet, right? It gets taken care of on its own magically. I'm going to show up fully to this commitment and to this path that I'm being asked to show up to. And I'm going to face my fears, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do the work that I'm being asked to do. I'm going to get Celeste out of the way, and I'm going to allow myself to experience what needs to come in. And so I want to invite you to the same experience. I want you to invite you to the same journey, because I know how beautiful it could be, right? And so I've created this, well, I haven't created the practice of charting, but I've worked on it, and I have, let's say, evolved the practice of charting through my experience with fertility awareness method. And I'm deeply passionate about it. This practice of charting has allowed me to reconnect to the sacredness of my body, to the sacredness of my womb, to the sacredness of the intelligence, of the wisdom that lies within. And this is the wisdom that we so crave as a humanity. This is why we feel so disconnected, because all of this wisdom that I'm talking about, all of this soil, all of the beautiful fertility that lies right behind the veil in front of our eyes, we are like a needle, an eye of a needle away from it. And if we can just open ourselves up to experience it, oh my freaking goodness, for lack of better words or cursing, right? We so crave this connection. And I can't freaking wait to share it more and more with you with these next episodes and so many other things that I'm working on. So where has this led me? Well, on my journey with specifically the divine feminine, I have, like I just mentioned, completely surrendered to this path. And I have humbly renounced myself to her guidance. I don't allow myself to, or at least I try my best not to stick my 2 thoughts into the work that comes through me, right? And this is very humbling because it's scary. It's not easy. Sometimes I don't want to say the things that she wants me to say. Sometimes I don't want to talk about the things that she wants me to talk about. I'm like, really? Fertility? I don't want to talk about this. And then when I get deep into it, I'm like, oh, I see. Okay, I understand now. And then I feel silly. And it's humbling because it shows me how little I know. I actually know nothing. And that's what I think we as a humanity are realizing, that we are just simply, it's like a dog, creating little holes in the soil to find his bones, to play with once again. It's like we're just looking for our wisdom, which in that metaphor would be the toys, right? The bones to play with. We're craving this wisdom in our life, right? And so the more I surrender and the more I try to renounce myself to this guidance, the more I realize how the information and the wisdom simply comes through. And that's how this practice of charting began for me. A full year of tracking my period and other lifestyle factors and understanding a natural form of birth control and understanding why it's so important to put paper and pen together with my hands and with my daily experiences, I realized that the practice of charting changed my life and created the foundation for my relationship with fertility. And I think this is where I'm going to be wrapping up our conversation today. The fact that I have created a practice around this and I cannot wait to share this practice with you. I am actually working on a beautiful project to make this practice available and practical and useful to your life so that you can deepen your connection to fertility. And so obviously right now, I'm speaking specifically to women, right? We have this menstrual cycle. We have a moon cycle that we can follow. And it's really up to us how we decide to honor this cycle within us, how we decide to bring fertility back into our lives, how we decide to allow fertility to show us how she wants to be seen in our lives, and how deeply and intimate we want to get with the possibility of fertility working her magic through you, right? So as usual, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what you think about this topic and so many other topics on this podcast. And I cannot wait for our next conversation. So I hope that I have ignited a little bit of curiosity for you to explore your relationship and your connection to the divine wisdom that lies within fertility. And if it hasn't, my final question to you is, what will? Until next time, sending you so much love. Mwah.